Okay guys, George back here again. So I took the head, stripped the intake off of it from where we mocked everything up last week, and went in and hosed it down with some brake parts cleaner. I've been doing some porting on some other parts, and metal shavings got everywhere. I thought I had this in a safe spot, but apparently I didn't. So I got it all cleaned up. I still sound kind of clogged up. That's because I was sick and then got hit with some seasonal allergies on top of it. So I've been miserable for the past couple of weeks. But I'm out here getting this done. Today we're going to get this test fit on the car. Make sure the turbo will clear all of the other things in the car, like the brake booster and the power steering pump. So I'm going to get everything set up and do that now. Okay, so I've got the head with the exhaust and the turbine housing bolted onto the car. So the next thing to do is to take my exhaust outlet, get that bolted to the turbo so I can see if I have downpipe clearance to the power steering pump. That means I may have to actually jack up the car and get the old downpipe out of there. So I'm going to get that fitted up on there now, and if I have to, get underneath there and remove that old downpipe. Okay, so here's my first issue. This is the turbine housing. The steering rack's down in the bottom. This is the power steering pump. So I have this pre-made downpipe that I bought years ago with V-bands on it, and it's got a pretty tight bend, but I cannot snake this thing down in there. As a matter of fact, I thought I would be clear of the power steering pump, but I think if it didn't hit down lower, it would definitely hit the power steering pump over here. So what that means I'll have to do is probably get another one of these flanges and then come off of this with a bend, a tight radius 90, and get this V-band pointed straight down so then I can fit a bend onto it to get it out the back of the car. So the next thing I'm going to do is get the center section in the turbo and make sure that my oil line is actually, my oil drain is actually going to fit. Then after that, if the oil feed that I already have will actually work, or if I'm going to make a new one of those. Okay, so center section is in the housing, but I don't have the clamp on here yet. But down here at the bottom, this is the drain, and it's gravity fed out of the turbo. So I need to make sure I don't clock it in such a funny way that the oil would pull up anywhere. So I've got a pretty straight shot. I just need a longer piece of rubber hose, and this will work fine. So now I'm going to see if my feed will fit. So I'm going to snake that in here. This is the feed that I was using before. And I don't want to make another one here if I can avoid it. And then I'm going to see if it'll fit here, and it's going to work. It's long enough, as long as the intake and everything doesn't interfere with it here. It's long enough to reach so I can use the same one. Now I just need to get this clamp on, get the compressor housing on, and I have to mark it because I'm going to have to wait until I get it off, because this is a giant snap ring that needs a pair of pliers to put it on that holds the compressor housing in. So I'm going to go ahead and get this clamp on and all that, and I will be back in a second. Okay, so just to show you guys, that's the oil feed line. So it looks like I went ahead and bolted the intake back on with just one bolt, just to make sure it would clear everything. And it looks like I don't really have any clearance issues anywhere but with that exhaust. And it's kind of fouling on both the body of the car and the power steering pump, which I'm laughing because I have a friend of mine that's going to tell me that's what I get for running power steering. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this intake back off and get the compressor housing on there and get the turbo kind of reassembled in its correct clocking so that I can pull all this apart and do some more work on the stuff while I'm waiting on the exhaust bin to redo that exhaust side. Okay, so I've got the compressor housing down here with the intake still attached. I just got a couple bolts in it just to do the test fit. And the compressor outlet is right down here, right behind where the head and the intake are. So what it looks like I'm going to have to do is I've got a 90-degree vibrant elbow that is actually for the van. But I'm going to commandeer that, because if I stick that down in here, I can get by everything. And, you know, for whole sets on these cars, you see the HY series used more than the HX. And the HY has a elbow like that coming out of it, which explains why it fits so much better. So I'm just going to go have this welded onto the compressor housing, and that should fix that issue. And I think I've got the exhaust figured out, but I'm going to talk about that in a minute. Okay, so I'm going to make a couple of tweaks to the turbo to get everything to bolt up properly. So I had to have this elbow welded onto the compressor outlet, and I'll have to do a little bit of trimming on that to buy myself some more clearance around the head. So what I'll do is I'll take this, put it back on the turbo after I cut this lip off, cut the lip off of here, fit them together, make a couple of marks, and then take this in and have it welded, because I don't have the capabilities to do aluminum welding. The other thing I need to do is on the exhaust side, I need to cut this off the flange or get a new flange, depending on how I can work it. I'm going to need to put a 90, preferably a short radius one, going down out of the car. And then I possibly might have to put a stud in this bolt hole on the turbo, and then a nut to get inside that. So we'll see, kind of, you know, I'm not going to weld anything until I know everything's going to be able to be workable fitment-wise. So I'm going to leave this video off here. Next week, we're going to get into putting the wiring back in the car. Also need to do the cooling system, so the water pump needs to go back on, and the radiator needs to get mounts fabricated for it. So probably in a couple of weeks, I'm hoping I can get all this sorted out. Once that's done, do a final mock-up of everything on the car. Then I can do a final assembly, hopefully. And then from there, we should be ready to fire it up. Again, I plan on doing that live on Instagram. So follow me there, and I'll make a post probably a few days in advance saying, hey, this is when I'm going to do it. Give everybody a time then. Until then, I will see you guys next week.